Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
You know, Shawnee Harley was a Canadian Olympic coach on the women's side, and she now has a program called Winning Matters. And we had a long talk about winning and losing, what losing means to coaches. That was really hard to listen to, and how our feeling about losing sometimes really affects our players and our teams. But she mentioned that having a team that's not afraid to lose is a really dangerous thing. And so I tried to press her a little bit, like, how do you create that? And she's like, well, let me ask you, like, when a team loses, what do? I'm like, well, they run, like they have some kind of consequence. And she said, does that help them to fear losing or to not be afraid to lose? And I was like, wow, well, it probably makes them afraid to lose because they don't want to have to do the consequence. And Coach, I've been wrestling back and forth. Like today, we played small advantage, big advantage, one-on-one. And it's really simple. We had a defensive player heel on the 3-point line, offensive player ball in the back, and as soon as the rip happens, either way, it's live. And they just played to the death. The death just means either a score or defense gets the ball back. No out of bounds. We just play. But I just let them play for those 5 or 6 minutes. We didn't keep score. We didn't have a winner or a loser. And part of my thought was, man, the drill is great, the skill is good, but I losing a bit of competitiveness because we're not keeping score and there's no consequence for losing. So I'm just going to ask you, how do you create competitive team? Does it have to be with a winner and a loser and with a consequence, or is there another way to make them so competitive and they don't have a fear of losing? That's a lot right there, Coach, but I'll let you run with it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in keeping a score on almost everything we do. You know, I think a team score. So like, even though like when we're doing 1-on-1 to 2-on-2, like I keep that score running throughout the whole segment. So like they're invested. If we're starting 1-on-1, you're rooting for that guy to score on that guy because he's on your team. So I'm a big believer in keeping the score, but also, I mean, there's times where like skill works, there's certain scenarios where to get maximum amount of reps, like you're going to need to maybe not always have a score on some things. One thing that we do, and don't know how translatable it is to maybe some high school levels, but I have 3 graduate assistants, and we'll do, I'll throw a player on there. We'll do a bunch of reps, just 4 on coaches, or, where our guys are out there guarding our graduate assistants, or, and there's some level of joy to that. Like, you don't want them to score. They're trying to score, like makes that fun. Like, so we'll rep at the start of practice, so yesterday we're going through sliding dribble handoffs, big on little, like where we just open up, let them through, reconnect. And like, we're working on that in a fun scenario where it's just like, you just don't want them to score for pride. And the coaches score, like they let them know it's fun. Like, I'm chirping them too. Like, so that I think you can create some joy and some fun in some of those aspects where it's like, maybe we're not keeping score, but like pride factor to it. I think that's a way to maybe get around, the guys aren't going hard type of thing because there's no consequence.
I love that. I think you're right on the money. Anytime that you can add more fun to it, yeah, even with competitiveness, I think it's a good recipe to get the best out of your players. And one thing I did do with the guys, and we continue to talk about, is what does losing mean? It's kind of like shot selection. Your job, it's like what Doug Novak said, your job is to take the shot, not make the shot. So when that's the mentality, is your only responsibility is to make it. It takes the pressure off of making it. You're only supposed to take it. It takes the pressure off of making it. So what if like your only responsibility is to compete and to play hard? Winning and losing will take care of itself. And then you got to define with the guys, what does it mean when we lose? Like, honestly, fellas, what happens? And you kind of ask them like that. And you get some different answers. And the reality is, just like off of what happens after a miss, nothing. Like, you prepare for what's next. What happens after a loss? Nothing. The sun's going to come up. Most likely the sun's going to come up, and we'll have another practice. We'll get to prepare. I think maybe that's a way, because I don't want to ever say that winning and losing doesn't matter. Like, there's a scoreboard. Like, I mean, we're doing our very, very best to win that game. But after the loss, life's not over. Prepare next up. Maybe that's the way to get them close to that level of not afraid to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that, I mean, you want to put them in situations too where how do you react to losing? Like, you're going to, like, how many undefeated seasons are there? Like, and, you know, one of my quotes from earlier in the week was no rain, no flowers. Like, you gotta understand what losing feels like to understand like what the beauty of winning is. And then I'm going to use this a lot this year. I hadn't used it yet. Just saying too, like, the enemy has a vote. Like, you're going up against another team that wants to beat you too. Like, they have a say in it. Like, sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that, but like, sometimes you get beat because the other team was better than you that night. Like,
Yeah.
very rarely do I feel that way. Like, happened to us a couple times last year. You know, Texas A&M International came in and just, I mean, they were like, we could have played that game on that night 10 times. I think they're beating us 10 times. It's like, they just were better than us that night. You know, Coach Mack does a great job. They played really hard, and, you know, we fed right into how they wanted to play, and we didn't get them to play how we wanted to play, and we lost. Like, there was nothing that was like, we didn't do this, we didn't do that, we didn't, like, it was just they were better than us. Like, tip your cap. They won at that time. Hopefully we see them again. I think that's like kind of a way to, like, I know I've thought about this a lot. Like, you're going to lose in life. Like, not everything's going to go your way. Like, and how you react to it is more important than, you know, the actual act of losing.
Yeah. I think the big focus needs to be about being present more than worrying about the future. I think when you're worried about winning and losing so much that you're not very focused in the moment. You're worried about, like, if we win this, what does this mean for our standings? If we lose this, what will coach be like tomorrow? Like, there's fear in unknown futures or outcomes, and you're stressed about that. Those guys, like they said in Last Dance about Michael Jordan, his ability to be fully present in the moment. That's so rare. I think that's a good challenge for us with our players, is to keep them in that moment. And then Matt Garnett, he's my buddy that we coach MG basketball camps together during the summer. He would always tell me, because sometimes, like, when players would act surprised that we lost, or I can't believe this, or parents, I can't believe we lost to these guys, Matt would always say, you know, they practice too.
Yeah.
Like,
They get a vote.
we don't think about that. Yeah, that's what I thought about when he said they get a vote. That's good.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.